Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. I tell you, it's not often that I get a day where I can really break away from work lately. The regular job has been all-encompassing as of late. Such it is, man. It happens every so often. But today I actually had some downtime. Got a bunch of stuff done around the apartment. If you checked out the last video, you see I got some other new things going on here at the channel. You can check that video out right there where I talk about squareoffs.com/cinema_sitdown. That's where you'll find me. But squareoffs.com is kind of new debate area where you can kind of pose a question, put up two answers, and have a conversation with your followers. It's just a new place to kind of talk and dive into some of the subject matters specifically that we talk about here. So playing around on Squareoffs, please go follow me over there. We're also instituting a scoring system for my movie and TV reviews, which you will see at the end of this TV review. And as my day was winding down, yes, I know I still got some other stuff to talk to you guys about, and don't worry, we will be. I promise we're going to finish talking about Jupiter's Legacy. But as my day was winding down today, I was sitting down to eat and threw some Netflix on, and there was a new beautiful animated image on the homepage, and I was like, what is this? And then I did a little research, and it's kind of funny because I just saw this name in a conversation that was not about this show. But it was a conversation about this African samurai, and wouldn't it be cool if that was a live-action movie? Well, it's not a live-action movie, at least not yet, but it is an anime series over on Netflix that, loosely touches on some historical references to this individual character, but goes to some really crazy and awesome anime places for a show that, on the overall, pretty damn fun. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat, we're getting ready to dive in, spoiler-free, into Yasuke Season 1, and I gotta tell you, I am not a traditional diehard anime fan. I love animation in general, but anime is not something that I really ever fully dove into. Every once in a while, if I was browsing through different stuff, occasionally I'd throw something on here or there, but not really my forte until Netflix started diving into anime. Then started to become something that I paid more attention to. And I gotta say, Netflix is on, at least for me, a diehard anime fan. They've done some cool stuff in the anime world, specifically with their anime animation. It is gorgeous, whether you're watching Castlevania, Blood of Zeus, which we've talked about here on the channel. I will be talking about Castlevania at some point. I'm in the process of finishing up that series. But in both areas, and I know there's a bunch of others that I have on my to-do list, but in those two in particular, which I have watched, beautiful animation, really great storytelling, and wonderful use of the medium of anime. And when I came across Yasuke, I got really pumped because I was like, ooh, new Netflix anime. I love when they do this stuff. I'm totally here for this. And the fact that it is one of these kind of wild anime stories about an actual historical figure. There's not a ton known about Yasuke. In a bit of loose research, he was a European servant that was brought over to Japan and was eyed in the, I believe, 1580s, somewhere in there, but gets eyed up by, the leader of that time, Oda Nobunaga, who is, I guess, historically in Japan, one of the great unifiers, helped bring, unify all of Japan, and took Yasuke on as a servant and then turned him into a samurai. And there's not tons of details about his history, which certainly leaves it up kind of in the air to go play with some of the mythology around the character. And if there is something that Netflix has proven itself can do, it is taking a subject matter that kind of has these kind of hazy, you don't know a lot, right? The whole Blood of Zeus is the idea of a Greek myth that we had never heard before, lost to the sands of time, allowed you to do something really, really cool. Here, Yasuke, we don't have all of his history, so let's go to some cool places where you can have magic and giant mechs. The opening of this show is wild, man. They just throw you right into it, and right away you're like, wait a minute, it's the 1580s, and there's magic and sorcery and mechs, and we're like, oh yeah, this isn't going to be historically accurate stuff. This is going to be an awesome anime adventure that kind of deals with an actual historical figure. And on the overall, like I said, I enjoyed Yasuke. It's a lot of fun. The animation is gorgeous, man. Like just look at that imagery alone, man. It's so beautiful. And the usage of the style of anime is done so well. I mean, it's exactly what you expect from the world of Netflix anime originals, and they do some really cool stuff with the animation, specifically in the last couple episodes. Like, there is a lot of magical elements going on in the last couple episodes, and just gorgeous, mind-melting visuals. I sat here on my couch just like I could turn the sound off and just look at this stuff, all day long. It was beautiful stuff. And whether it's the action, there's a lot of kick-ass, very bloody, very violent, very gory samurai action. There's some really cool mystical action. The usage of magic, both on the good and evil sides of things here. Really interesting stuff. And like I said, from a visual medium, pops start to finish, man. I mean, this is an absolute knockout visually. Story-wise, structure-wise, well, LaShawn Thomas, who is our writer and kind of, lead creator here, I like some of what he does, and I don't like all of what he does. It's kind of interesting. It's a 6-episode series, and it really feels like the first 2 episodes are kind of a self-encompassed story, the second 2 episodes are an encompassed story, and the last 2 episodes are an encompassed story, with bleed over on 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. But it really felt like there were 3 separate stories being told in this one overarching story. And in each set of those 2 episodes, I felt like you really could have dove in deeper and kind of flushed out some of these characters, some more of this world, not kind of just throw us into mayhem, really kind of establish some things a little bit better. Like I said, the show gets off a little slow because it gets out really, really fast, man. You don't know who is good, who's bad, who's fighting who. There's just mayhem going on. Visually, you're like, yes, I'm here for it, but somebody slow things down and tell me what's going on. And there's elements throughout the series that kind of delve into some of Yasuke's backstory, and a lot of that is heavily concentrated in those first 2 episodes, with some of that bleed over going into the third. And I kind of just sat there and went, I would have liked a 4 to 6 episode arc of just that. There was some really interesting stuff. Ming-Na Wen provides one of the voices for one of the characters in Yasuke's past. And speaking of voices, and we'll talk about him, LaKeith Stanfield is your lead voice here, voicing Yasuke himself, which is just awesome. Like I said, we'll talk about him. But you have Ming-Na Wen in that bit, and she's fantastic. I love her. I've been a big fan of Ming-Na for years. And voice-wise here, she brings a lot to the character that she's playing. But that past was really interesting, and you could have fleshed that out a little bit more. You move into those second 2 episodes, and there's kind of the storyline that we've been introduced to early on in the first 2 episodes. When you're not dealing with just the stuff in the past, you're dealing with stuff with the present, with an older Yasuke and this young girl named Saki, who happens to have, mild spoilers, powers. And those powers are very integral to the way the story plays out and to their relationship. But in those second 2 episodes, you have a group of individuals that are kind of chasing Saki down. And they're kind of being led by this priest-like figure. Well, I guess not priest-like, he is a priest. They're being led by this priest who actually, there's all sorts of things going on with him. But that story felt very kind of locked in those 2 episodes. And again, with stuff where it was you could have spread that out over 5 or 6 and gotten something really good just out of that story, and you would have had 2 seasons out of those first 4 episodes. And then when you get to the last 2 episodes, you're talking about the grand. It is a 3-act structure to a degree, and the finale is big mystical elements. We go to the astral plane, which is very different looking than other astral planes we've seen in other movies or franchises, and again allows for some amazing animation, and there's a lot more mystical elements, and everything just is amplified. All the building that you've done pops off in those last 2 episodes, and kind of deals with this character that's kind of pulling all the strings on the whole season, the Daimyo. And again, this was one of those spots where it's I feel like you could have stretched that out for the Daimyo stuff. I feel like you could have gotten an 8 to 10 episode season out of easy, and really could have dived more into that stuff. And when I was watching the show, that was like the one thing that it felt like it was lacking. It was like some of this stuff is firing at me too much and too fast. It's a lot of, information dumping while all this crazy action and story is going on. And while I like the elements of all three of the storylines that you get inside of this overarching story, I just think you could have really pulled out a lot more and really polished these individual sections of this series into what could have been multiple seasons. Now, the flip side is if you don't ever get a season 2, well, this show shows you everything, man. You get a full story that gives you a very satisfying ending to a full arc outside of wishing you just could have had more time to live inside of the arc that we get here. But like I said, there's no second season. You're not banking on anything. They set it up where you could definitely tell more stories and go forward. But if you don't, you get a full arc. You get a full, what could have been a 3-season story in one season. And so often we talk about, especially here, I hate when certain creators, set up a movie to be a setup for something else. You might not get that something else, so don't set me up, pay me off. Well, this show pays off everything, man. This shows full potential. And what's exciting about that is while maybe story-wise you had to take some hits to kind of just tell this big story through 6 episodes and give you all this wonderful spectacle, but it does show you the peak of the show. The full potential of this show. This show can go to some amazing places. And considering that they did tell this full overarching story in this 6-episode span, I'm fascinated to see where you go next and what you decide to utilize, who you bring back from the series. I mean, there are some really fun characters, some that we had to say goodbye, what I thought was too soon. It's where, if you had a full season with some of these characters, that might have been more fun. But I think there's ways that you could bring maybe some of those back. Some of the people who are still around by the end of the series, they could certainly come back in. And all around, I think the overall makeup here is a big win. And I would love to see what you could do with Yasuke going forward. And when it comes to the voice cast here, like I said, LaKeith Stanfield is Yasuke, crushes it. I mean, this dude is so good in anything he touches, and it's cool to see him diversifying himself going into the world of anime. I believe he was in Death Note, which is built from an anime and then turned into an anime series, I believe, on Netflix also, which I've been told I need to check out. I wasn't a big fan of the movie, but it's not the first time that he's kind of had a foray into this world, and seeing him being involved here is awesome. And the idea of an African samurai is so fascinating. The fact that he was a real person, actually existed, that's a really cool element to the show, because it's you can pull on elements and things that we do know for certain. Different battles that he was in, some of those are referenced, some of the places, some of the events that we do know happened are referenced inside of this wild anime world. And Stanfield just does a great job of breathing life into the character. Then you have Maya Tanita, who voices Saki. Not my favorite, and it's not Tanita's fault. Her voice work is very in line with younger characters that I've seen in other anime properties, where it just feels a little bit more dubbed than natural. That being said, I think she does a good job with Saki, and the character is awesome. If you like Yasuke, Saki is just such an awesome addition to that, and the two together really make a fun team, especially coming out of a year where we saw a lot of that single parent type relationships, you go and look at Pedro Pascal and Mandalorian with Grogu. Yasuke, to a degree, kind of is like a parent. There's actually a lot of similarities between the Mandalorian and Yasuke, and the way that he dealt with Grogu at the beginning and the way he deals with Saki at the beginning, and getting to watch them grow where they don't Yasuke doesn't want to be involved, then kind of comes around, and then by the time you get to the end, there's some really cool stuff with them, and the Saki character in general was just the stuff she can do is so cool. And again, one of the reasons where it's I could have pulled a little bit more out of there. But I thought she does, on the overall, a pretty solid job. William Christopher Steffens plays, there's a band of hired, I guess you will call them assassins, but it's kind of this interesting group of people where you have a shaman who's voiced by William Christopher Stevens. You have this like AI robot kind of mech that's voiced by Darren Criss named Haruto. Then there is there's like a bear woman, and there's this like real badass like ninja chick with this massive scythe. Like that group is really awesome, and like there are reasons that you don't like them, and there are things that you do like about them. The way they utilize those characters, I really enjoyed quite a bit. But again, is one of the reasons, like, I wish we had more, because I want to spend some more time with some of those characters. And William Christopher Stevens as the shaman, and Darren Criss as the robot, I thought were the two standouts in that group. They just do really, really fine work. As we mentioned earlier, Ming-Na Wen, fantastic. I love her, and pretty much everyone that pops in here does a really nice job. And I thought the characters and the utilization of the characters, they all had interesting elements to them, if they were magical or just purely physical. With like what you do in the action, the sound work in here. Man, the sound editing is so freaking good in this thing, man. Like the sword fighting sequences and just all of the action in general sounds so wonderful. And the score, Flying Lotus does the score here, and it's not on a level of like what we got with Ludwig Göransson with Black Panther, but elements of like how Göransson was able to use like kind of hip-hop rap type beats and musical elements and blend that with like African music was really cool. Well, Flying Lotus does something similar. You get some of those, hip-hop beats in there, but mixed in with, Japanese-inspired and anime-inspired sounds and music. And it really was one of those things where multiple times in the show, just like, man, dude, the score is so good. And just, like I said, the sound effects in general were really awesome. And on the overall, I think this is a really fun show, and I think this is another win for Netflix in the world of anime. If you're an anime fan, I'd highly recommend checking it out. I certainly hope we get a Season 2, because while I think you could improve Season 1 by expanding on stuff, there is certainly, like I said, a lot of potential going forward. You could definitely go and do some cool things and tell some cool stories in this world. So I hope we get a second season, but if we don't, the fact that they didn't spend time to dive in and stretch things out, you do get one piece of material that kind of does give you a full story that's, for me, very satisfying for a 3-hour watch. So I really enjoyed Yasuke. How much did I enjoy Yasuke? Well, let's get up the old C-Maniac meter. There it is, man. The boys are down below. Like I said, I dug this, and let's see where the meter lands, right? Like, for the most part, great animation, a really fun time, good voice work. You just could have expanded on the story a little bit. So where we land? A solid 3.5 out of 5 stars for the Seaman. I think there is a lot of room for improvement in this show, specifically if you get a second season. But what you get is an absolute blast. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think if you would have expanded, maybe had an 8 or 10 episode season here and kind of pulled on some of the threads a little bit more, you could have easily gotten to 4 C-Maniacs. But we will take 3.5 C-Maniacs today for Yasuke and our introduction to the C-Maniac scoring meter. So there's a little fun for me and hopefully for you guys. That's it, man. That's all I got to say about Yasuke. Now I want to know what you guys are thinking. Have you had a chance to check out Yasuke? I know it just dropped today, but like I said, easy 3-hour watch. If you had a chance to check it out, what'd you think, man? Did the animation pop? Did the voice acting pop? What'd you think of the story? Did you think they should have expanded on certain things? Maybe saved some of that third act stuff for another season? Are you glad that it was all right there in front of you? And if you haven't had a chance to check it out, is anime one of your styles of choice? Is it something you've enjoyed on Netflix? Like I said, I don't dive full into the anime, but the Netflix anime stuff is getting me to want to dive into more and more. So let me know where you fall on that. And if you were interested in the series and the idea of the character of Yasuke, anything you're thinking about that, man, good, bad, indifferent, goes down below in the comment section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the old C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions, you want to show a little love and support, you want to come join C-Maniac Nation, you can do that by jumping over there, hitting that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. And until next time, the C-Man's Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.